Recording in progress.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
Welcome back to Big Riff Energy. I am here with Ted from Darkthrone, also known as the mighty Nocturno Culto. Ted, thank you for joining us, man.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm not so mighty, but I'm just a dude waking up in the morning and trying to thinking about some riffs. I don't know.
Yeah, that's all we talk about on this show is riffs, man. So,
Yeah. Oh,
hey,
that's good.
I have to ask you, we've all seen, it's one of my favorite little pieces of album hype, I guess you would say, when Fenriz said, when you guys finished this new album, that you shook his hand, and that's the first time that that you shook Fenriz's hand. That can't, is that an exaggeration? That can't be true.
No, it's not a exaggeration because first time I shook his hand was when I first met him in '88, and the second time was now after we finished his album.
Well, I can see
So,
why. Lots of good
yeah,
riffs on there. Yeah.
yeah. I think the thing about that is uh, I won't go too much into detail, but uh, I got an idea when we were in studio the first days, and I thought, okay, and I suggested something to Fenriz on how to work a little more together in the studio, if you understand. Because thing is that it's been always like I have a lot to do in studio, recording guitars and mostly all the bass and vocals and solo guitars, and I even deal with synthesizer, and so does Fenriz as well. But this time around, it was more like I wanted him to get an idea. I said, okay, this riff that we just recorded, if you could find something harmonical on the guitars and you can record that, like not necessarily a solo, but just try to find something to do on that part. And because I'm very busy with recording guitars all the time, and so he did, and it works great. And he also came up with it's a bit more loose kind of thing, because, and that's why we also decided that on the actual album, we are not credited for playing anything,
Right.
just so that we can just keep the everything more flexible. And I think it's stupid to say that, because this is a band of two people, and we are pulling this thing together, and who playing what is not really that interesting. But it's the same as usual, basically.
It's really interesting for super nerds like me.
Yeah, exactly. I even did some bell thing hitting on it, so I also hit the thing, so yeah, it's I think that worked really good. So I was very happy, because the result of that kind of workflow is that we was able to add more things to the album. We don't put on any things that are unnecessary, but it's good to have the time and the possibility when both of us thinks about things, and we just get it done,
Totally.
And I think that's it's a bit a more ornamented album, probably. So yeah, I think we're going to keep it that way now, because it feels good.
It sounds good too, and that comes across that there's a little bit more of a collaborative energy, and maybe, like you said, more efficient workflow. Like,
yeah,
I hear you guys doing things. You've explored a lot of different approaches to writing like epic riffs and that sort of thing, especially in what I would say is like the modern Darkthrone era. But
Yeah,
I want to ask you, you mentioned something earlier about harmonies and stuff like that. I was going to ask you about a couple of specific riffs. Since this is big riff energy, we have to talk about riffs.
yeah.
So, excuse the necro production value here, but this riff right here, is this is this the first three-part guitar harmony that Darkthrone has done? I know two-part guitar harmonies from previous stuff, but I can't think of another three-part guitar harmony.
No, I think this. I think it even was 4-part harmony.
Oh shit, even better.
Yeah, yeah. But it says something about when you do songwriting, it doesn't has to be so fucking complicated, you know. Think about that riff you just took from. It's very simple, but it's really effectful, you know. And when you do this kind of harmonies on top of each other, it's getting insane, and it's so simple riff. And I mean, I like progressive rock and metal as well. I can listen to that, but I think there's something pure about. I mean, it's more difficult to make a simple riff than an advanced riff. You know, as a guitarist, it's very easy for me to, putting in some extra stuff, and because it's fun to play. But you have to keep in mind that this is music that people are going to listen to, and to make riffs last for decades, hopefully, you have to be a bit careful, I guess.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that up because in preparation for speaking with you today, I watched some previous interviews. You did an interview with a guy named Dev that came out maybe 6 months.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Great, phenomenal interview, and I'm kind of pissed off at Dev because he asked so many good questions. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, it was a good interview. It was fun, It's nice, and yeah, it's different, but I always appreciate. But you do not doing so bad yourself, man.
Oh, thank you.
I like this interview now.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
but one of the main things I wanted to bring up, you already covered yet again here. It is harder. It, you cited Tony Iommi as a big influence, as we all should.
yeah.
He's the godfather of the big riff. And
Billy Gibbons.
oh yeah, of course, I'm in Texas,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Austin, Texas, right here.
yeah.
But what riffs do we remember that Tony wrote? It's nothing like fucking Dream Theater.
No,
It's bow, bow, bow.
yeah.
That's what lasts decades, as you said.
Exactly, yes, and that's that. I mean, we do say a lot of things, and it's just fun to say things, even if I know it can sound whatever. But it's like what we said some years ago was like you can't really review an Darkthrone album when it comes out, because because we don't make contemporary music. It's like if you can review our album in 15 years and see where it stands back then, and it's just what we're trying to say when we say a thing like that is that we believe this music of ours will hold it a bit test of time, because we are actually we are quite confident in that area, because we it's hard to explain actually, but we are not making contemporary music, and I think people that follow Starson and likes our band understand what we're doing. But there's a heck of a lot of other people that don't understand what we're doing. But
Yeah,
maybe they will understand in 15 years when they, get tired of other things. I don't know.
I definitely relate to that, man. I think there is. this weird desire that I don't think it used to be the case, but it seems like in the modern era, people become more and more obsessed with like putting a label on it or a subgenre or something like that. And I find
Yeah,
myself sort of in the same boat. You know, I make basically just traditional heavy metal,
yeah,
you know, from the source is kind of how
yeah,
I,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
that sort of that can go in and out of uh, the culture. You know, even a guy like let's take Dio for
yeah,
example. You know, in the '80s, he's huge. Everyone loves Dio Sabbath and all of that. Then the '90s come around, and especially in the States where we're a lot more fickle and a lot more uh, susceptible to trends and that sort of thing. Like in the '90s, no
yeah,
one really understands what Dio's doing. Nobody's interested. But then it's cycled back around, you know, with Heaven
yeah,
and Hell
yeah, yeah, yeah,
albums, and they're back to playing like arenas and stadiums. But
yeah.
you know what he said is, don't pay any fucking attention to that and just do your thing. And
Mm.
if other people, you know, walk your path, and if other people come and walk alongside you, that's fine. And if they
Yeah.
don't, that's fine too.
Oh, that's a wise man's word.
That's Dio. That's not me.
I know. But yeah,
uh,
I think yeah, it's I totally agree on that one because I think that's been the case with us as well. Uh, we have been on a musical journey that is been very mind blowing to me when I look back now. You know, for 35, 36 years, and it's quite in. It's a really big thing to think about. I usually don't think about stuff like this because we're always thinking forward to the next album. But lately, I've been kind of like it's been a lot of years. You know, this has been such a huge part of my life. It's very I can't even start to imagine how life would be without this band, and because it's given me such a lot of just to to keep me sane all the years. To have this kind of outlets that you can express yourself with music and don't have any limitation. Really, it's. I said to Fenriz a couple of years ago. I said to him like maybe we just end up like being like a pure heavy metal band, and he said, "Yeah, that's what I've been saying all along." But some people today even I know that some people wishing they think of Darkthrone as a black metal band, and they don't understand why we doesn't release an Under Funeral Moon 2 album or something. Uh, I, okay, I wouldn't, completely shut that door because we have every musical doors open for us, and we don't care. So maybe, but most likely not.
well, I love that you guys just write your own rules, and you know, you mentioned earlier that it's a huge part of your life and it's an outlet, you know. So if it's so important to you guys on that level, it doesn't make any sense to put any limitations on it because you're making music from your fucking soul because you
Yeah,
need, you know. It's
exactly. And I remember, for example, Under Funeral Moon album, it was the three of us back then. We knew exactly what we had to do, and there was a lot of limitations we put on ourselves, of course. but we wanted to make the coldest black metal album we could possibly get. So that was also a result of when you're younger. I mean, we were 19 when we recorded a Blaze, for example, and it was like kids. But we were kind of serious kids. Okay, we knew exactly how this was to go down. So, but it was a great time, and now so many years later, still still always feels fresh, and I think we managed to carve our way, for all these years, and it feels really good to not have these limitations. It's like Fenriz wrote in some of the lyrics back in 2005 or something, when we got our own studio, because then all the chains were broken. So the Cult is Alive is a result of, kind of the chains we might have attached to us was kind of broken. And that album feels like I remember first recording weekend of that album, the feeling of being really free, and I think that album just shows that. And even making those songs was like, I knew if I made this song, we can rehearse it. There's no time limit. We have our own studio. We could just, and it was a great sensation of freedom, and I guess, basically freedom, the sound of freedom.
Yeah, I remember when that record came out. It was the day after my 18th birthday, believe it or not.
Yeah,
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 so I heard Transylvanian Hunger was the first one I ever heard. I think I was 14 or 15 years old, and that was also like the first black metal album I ever heard. And
yeah.
so obviously that's part of the sort of the first era of the band,
Mm,
defining black metal record. And I'll be honest, I knew that it was extreme and that it sort of scared me and had like a mystical element to it, but I had never heard anything like that, so I had no real frame of reference, and maybe it took me a while to understand or appreciate what it was. But
mm.
shortly after that, uh, this is why I have this record behind me. Sardonic
Yeah,
Wrath came out uh,
yeah,
when I was 16, and that one, here we go back to the riffs. That one had
yeah.
the riffs, and it's still a black metal record, but
Mm.
I want to ask you a question. I've been obsessed with this riff ever since that album came out, and I was learning it the other day and trying to really pick up on the subtle, like specific picking and bending and fingering. But this riff right here, I want to ask you about it. Do you remember
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, you talked in that interview with Dev about how knowing like too much theory or too much technique and being like confined in that box can really kind of be limiting to a guitar player, especially to your creativity. And I feel like what makes so many of your guys' riffs cool is that they're like wrong. It's just
Mm.
nasty. It has the
Yeah.
attitude. So, for instance, that riff, if you look up
Mm.
the tab online, it's all just power chords.
Yeah.
It doesn't show any bends. It doesn't show any single finger. But to me, I had to learn Black Sabbath by ear. I had to learn Metallica by ear.
Yeah.
Stuff that you can't really define with like a tablature. To me, on that riff, it's like you're on the power chords and you're bending it sort of out of tune, and then you slide with one finger, not
Yeah.
on the power chord, right? And then
Yeah.
you
That's right.
bend that
Yeah.
out of
Yeah.
tune, and then you land back on the the power chord, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's that. Yeah.
no, go ahead. Whatever you were gonna say.
No, it's just yeah, it's nice. Now it's many years since I heard that album. Yeah, but yeah, it's as I said, it's you know, having the limitations. I mean, if I went kind of, if I was a scholar guitarist, I would be hesitating to do things that is not allowed, because then I might sound like I'm not a professional, and that is a lot of limitations. And I think that comes down to, of course, the riffs, but also when you are going to make additional guitars, and you're going to do harmonies, or you're going to do some kind of a solo thing. It was, I remember Soulside Journey actually, because that was, I had no idea. I wasn't a solo guitarist at all, but I tried, and it was maybe a bit strange, and but it sounded good in my ears. So I mean, all the solos there is, I had some kind of a idea, but they always change from every time I play them. And I'm not I'm not a good solo guitarist, but I think it's good that I can just come into part of the song. Okay, here we have some additional guitars. That's good, and you can think of. I mean, there's no limitations of what I can do. You know, it's like I like that. I like
Yeah,
that.
I think it, like you said before, getting your own studio, it's like the chains are broken. You know.
Yeah, it's a, and also the. I know I've been saying this thing in a lot of interviews, but I can't get enough of it, because I'm kind of proud to, since you know, I was thinking about this, like, because the sound production on an album is really important for us. Um, Not important at it's that we strive to get a so-called good sound or not, but I think it's, we are experts on letting some coincidences, you know, rule the day. And you know, it's like, if you take an album as Eternal Hails, which I can go into length to about the guitar sound, because something happened there that I think it was something about Fenriz's tinnitus kind of thing. Couldn't stand the guitar sound first, because it was kind of a what you call it. It was a bit more old school fuzz thing. It's not like really aggressive, but it was a bit yeah. It sounded really good, and but for his ears, it was like completely crisis. And then we had one song left to record, so we had to record the last song with that sound, and then we had to take all the guitar tracks and play it through some kind of a tube amp to get
So you
distortion.
reamped it.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
And also we used just one day to mixing all the songs, so it was something okay, but that's what we experienced. But when this album came out, people loved it, and because now it's become its own kind of thing, and when you listen to it, it's definitely some kind of a, it drags you into some kind of a mood.
Yeah.
So yeah, so yeah, what I was initially saying is the sound is important. So if you picture yourself that you have a really fantastic painting on your wall. Okay, you have this painting, and every painting should have a frame. Okay, so if the painting is like an album, okay, so the painting itself is the music, and the frame is the sound. Yeah,
I like that analogy. Yeah, that's cool.
yeah. And when you, okay, so you can always slap a flat plastic frame around that majestic painting.
Yeah, modern
But it would be
compression,
kind of, yeah, it would be
quantizing
kind of,
modern
yeah,
compression. It's like a cardboard frame.
yeah. It will be boring. So that's when it come in that you should have a really, because if the picture or the painting is really majestic, and I don't know why I use the word majestic, but anyway, and you have to frame it to make, to drag people into some kind of a mood. Then you have to have a big wooden frame, and they have a lot of carvings and like details. And I think all these details is emerging when you taking chances with your sound. There's a lot of albums last 20 years I really wanted to like, because I hear the riffs are good. I understand where the band is going, but I just can't listen to it because the sound is so sterile, and the drum sound is awful, and I'm I think we are very when it comes to drum sound, we are very we have we are broken. It's the drums should sound like drums, but I understand that people that make extreme fast music, or no, I can't say that either, because when you think about Altars of Madness of Morbid Angel, it's a perfect example.
Or world downfall, even.
Yeah, exactly.
Even faster.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So it's possible, and
Yeah.
so yeah.
And another thing too, I think certain of us are attracted to what's real, and we want the human element. We don't want to be sold a product. We want it to be human. We want it to be real. And you mentioned what I would describe as, like, we call them happy accidents, right? So it's a
Yeah.
mistake or it's wrong. But listen to Black Sabbath Paranoid, or Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, man. Bill Ward misses a crash and a kick, changing
Yeah.
parts. He does that big long fill, and
Mm.
fuck, at the last second he kind of fucks it up. They just leave it in there because think about the word record. It's a
Yeah.
record of
Mm.
what you guys experienced, and so many
Yes.
people are afraid to let it be.
Yeah, exactly, and that's completely right, and it's something about the energy when you're doing a good take. You can feel the energy of the band, and then you have to just, okay, that minor thing, fuck that.
Yeah,
That's how we played it. So yeah,
that rules.
yeah, we experienced that on one of the albums between 2006 or 8, somewhere that we had when we recorded drums, and because we record drums and guitar live, and something happened that we misunderstood each other. So I just was holding the guitar, and the tone was just holding, and Fenriz kept on playing, and we came back together again, and that shouldn't happen, but we kept it in there because it sounds good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but yeah, so happy accidents.
Love it. I'm going to ask you about another specific riff. Darkthrone albums, for me at this point, and a lot of other riff appreciators, it's like a holiday now. When a Darkthrone comes out,
Oh
Darkthrone
yeah,
album comes out, it's kind of like a little holiday for us. And I
I like
always
that.
pick up a guitar and like whatever riff hits me the hardest, I'm like, I want to learn that. You know, it makes me love
Yeah.
my guitar. So on this album, it was this riff right here. That's one of yours, I think.
Yeah.
You remember writing that?
Yeah. I was thinking heavy metal, but I was always also taking in some kind of Norwegian folk music vibe there.
Beautiful.
And it's also it's a riff that just sometimes just appear, and you know, the if you take the riff and split it in half, I'm chugging a couple of more times the second half, even though it's the same, but it's those variations that just come up. And because when it comes to making music, the rhythmics and the way you the way you play, you know, the pick and the rhythmic can be, I mean, everything can be changed to sound very, very different. So I think that I like that about music in general, because you know, you can always make a classical version of a song, or you can make a black metal version of a, you know, music is very what do you call it, international, what's this word?
Interchangeable.
Yeah, it's music, I mean, it's like I'm thinking about
Oh, universal maybe. Music
universal, I mean,
universal.
yes. And if a guy or a girl sits in Bogota in Colombia and listen to Darkthrone, and they get this really cool vibe, they are seeing completely different things around them than I do. So their reference to the music is and I think that's incredibly fascinating stuff.
It's almost
Uh,
like telepathy. Like we're able to
yeah,
share moments together
yeah,
across
we
time.
share those moments and those atmospheric riffs things, and we all understand it in our own way. And one of the most fascinating things about music is that you can't see music, so it's invisible. So it's up to everybody to, you know, figure out what they hear. It's very complex.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about sometimes. I
Yeah,
will say you mentioned like the little tricky part of the riff where you add a couple more chugs on the,
yeah,
you know, every other time or whatever. I
yeah,
I get more and more drawn to what I would say is like not complicated. You want to avoid complicated, and the word that I like to use is clever. It's
yeah,
just a little clever, simple thing that's just a change enough to make the riff that much more interesting, but you're not making it confusing or complicated.
yeah. Well, thank you. I take that as a great compliment, actually.
Right on. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think that's what we all end up striving for.
Mm.
You know, I watched a Kirk Hammett interview a little while ago where he was describing, I think it was a riff and the thing that should not be. And he said, you know, simple and heavy and powerful, good.
Mm.
Um, somewhat progressive and interesting, but with not too many notes, great. And he said,
Yeah,
but too complicated to where it's confusing and there's too many unnecessary notes. No, fuck that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's wise. Some more wise words from a wise
Yeah,
man.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, because the everything has to. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of all the coincidences that has been in Darkthrone. You know, both sound wise, and I remember when you talked about the what's the name of the album behind you? You talked
Sardonic
about.
Wrath.
Yeah, Sardonic Wrath. Because I remember we recorded that, and I was then living far away from Oslo, and we recorded it in Oslo, and we were happy, you know. We're like, okay, album's done, let's go home. I was driving for hours back home, and I've been home for. And the next day, I got a phone call, and it was like, you know, you only recorded like 27 minutes or 26 minutes or something, and we like, oh, okay. So I had to go back to Oslo, and Fenriz and I had to, you know, get our act together, and luckily the studio hasn't taken away any equipment, so it was there. But then we just had to, you know, make another song very fast. So the last song on Sardonic Wrath is that result. And we just I made some riff, he made some riff. We met in the studio a couple of days later and just put them together and recorded it. So
Beautiful. People are too
yeah.
scared to do that nowadays, man.
I guess. I guess.
So I want to also ask about another favorite album of mine. Um, you know, one of the things I like about Darkthrone and appreciate about Darkthrone is the same sort of thing with Black Sabbath, where there are eras of the band. You know, there's several eras of Black Sabbath, but to me, it all sounds like Black Sabbath because it has
Mm.
that I guess the spirit of Tony Iommi in it or
Yeah.
whatever. Um, and I feel like people don't realize like how gradual the evolution of Darkthrone has been because you know you've said it in interviews. You guys were sort of blending metal genres as far back as A Blaze in the Northern Sky. Like there's all kinds of different metal riffs on that album, you know, and
Yeah.
it's been a pretty natural evolution. But you know, I guess the first era uh, probably would go all the way to Sardonic Wrath, and then maybe the next era starts with The Cult is Alive, you know, starting to
Mm.
introduce some different stuff. I feel
Yep.
like, you know, with Arctic Thunder and Old Star, that was maybe the beginning of the new era.
You're absolutely right about that, because there's not many times Fenris and I are actually discussing things like this. But we did that after the recording of the Underground Resistance. Because if you take Cult is Alive up until the Underground Resistance, we talked about how the Underground Resistance was really, we were peaking in that era, you know.
I agree.
So we thought, okay, so we actually decided to go a bit more to arrange the songs and the riffs a bit more simplistic, maybe a bit more, you know, understandable. So that's what we did on Arctic Thunder.
Cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a great album, and I feel like that the sort of new approach or the new concept got even more solidified with Old Star. That's my personal take.
Yes,
It's just one of my favorite albums
exactly.
we've
Yes,
done.
you
So
have 100% right about that. So and Arctic Thunder and the All Star was recorded. I mean, I think All Star, both of the album were recorded on our own studio equipment, and it was recorded in this bomb shelter that we recorded demos in the 80s.
wow.
Yeah, so we got back there for those two albums, and then we got kind of kicked out because um, some of the people, responsible for the place said that the air quality there was so bad, so they couldn't allow people to be there. And it was strange because when I first walked there down there to record Arctic Thunder, it smelled exactly the same as it did in the 80s,
Wonder what
maybe
that
even a bit
was.
worse.
Was it lead or asbestos or radiation?
No, I don't think it's just bad venting or something. I have no idea, but no, it was just stone walls.
So
Yeah.
my question with Old Star, because he's a really dear friend of mine. How did you guys get connected with Sanford Parker for the mix? Do you remember?
Yes, I remember, because the Underground Resistance was the first album that we I think by that time we understood that it was important with mastering. So we got in touch with Jack from Enormous Door Mastering, and he did a fantastic job on that album and has been working with us ever since. And he's except for Eternal Hails, unfortunately, we should have used him as well. And that's another story. But yes, we got in touch with him back then. So when it came to Old Star, I asked him on mail if he could, because he did actually mix. I released some kind of a solo album some years ago, and I sent all the tracks to him so he could mix that as well as mastering. So he knew about Sanford Parker, so that's where those files were headed. And yeah, so it got a great result, and so we were happy about it. That's the only, because I was doing all the mixing all the time when we had our own studio. So, but that one went to the US, and I think that was a really good experience. To yeah, it was. It came out what I was hoping it should be. So yeah,
I think
but I don't know. I had some contact with, of course, Sanford, but I don't know him, from anything else. I haven't been in touch with him since or before.
he's a great guy, and I think he did such a good job of finding a balance. You know, his mixes are pretty high definition, I would say,
Yeah,
but I think he sort of brought that back to be a little bit more old school, a little bit more organic, and fit more with the vibe of dark. He just found like a perfect balance on that record, I feel like.
yeah, he did. So yeah, we were happy about that. And I mean, mixing is like a science for itself, really. So, but we always have to mix it. So yeah, there's yeah. So next time, well, spring 25 will be the next studio session, I guess.
All right. I'm ready.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. We're not ready yet, but we will be.
Good to know. So you talk a lot about riff influences and guitar influences and stuff like that. I saw for the Coffin Storm album that Fenriz sort of listed out his vocal inspirations, which I thought was pretty cool. I really like your newer approach to vocals, and I describe it as like a ancient million-year-old troll that's living in like inside of a big tree or something.
Yeah,
Uh,
something like that. Yeah.
here, did you have specific vocal influences for that approach, or did it just kind of come out of thin air?
Yeah, comes out of thin air, because I it goes years between I doing vocals. So I don't know where my vocal stands before I'm in the studio.
Right,
And
because our voices just change naturally with age.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I can't. Well, if you think about Back to a Blaze and Under the Full Moon, it was a very different. I can't do that kind of vocals anymore, because it's too Donald Duck for me. So it's it's a it's impossible to do that again. I guess I could try, but the voice just isn't built for that kind of high pitched vocals anymore.
I'm not sure it would fit. I think what you're doing,
No, I don't think
it's
so.
it's a obscure, creepy, ancient, weird sounding thing. It's like perfect match for the vibe of the
Yeah,
album.
I think so as well. And there's, since we kind of, in many ways, we left kind of the black metal stuff behind many years ago. There's still traces of black metal in our music, but I think, as you say, the vocals are changing, I try to make it fit. It's like when I'm doing the Sarke stuff. Sarke is very easy to do vocals on because it kind of easily fit my way of doing specific kind of vocals, but also try to be you know, you hear an album and you want to make the vocals work with that album. So yeah, we have every door open. I think Fenriz did a great job on doing some backing vocals and vocals on the new Darkthrone album.
He sang on the Eon 3, that song.
Yeah, yeah, and also some backing vocals on some other songs as well. Black Dawn Affiliation, he sings at the end, and I think that's really a very tasteful, good thing that he thought that out while I was recording guitars. So I'm very happy. I mean, even that vocals on Black Dawn Affiliation is worth a handshake.
There you go. I agree.
Yeah.
So lyrics, man, there's always kind of been like a cosmic element, I feel. But the lyrics, they seem to me to get even more abstract. You know, they're compelling, um, almost in like a subconscious kind of way, and
Yeah.
almost sort of like avant-garde. But they're very abstract, and I wonder, because I know I've been in this position. Are you ever singing a song and you're looking at the lyrics and you think, man, what the fuck is this song about?
Oh well, I have at least I have the time to digest the lyrics before I go to the studio, and we don't talk much about the lyrics, but I'm asking Fenris if it's a specific thing I want to know. But I've been so fortunate to be performing his lyrics for so many years, and I mean, even on Soulside Journey, I found his lyrics to be fantastic, and he's a great writer of lyrics, and I think on It Beckons Us All is been like he's really good lyrics,
I agree.
and yeah, this so we have this yeah, you know, the cosmic theme on something of it, yeah, definitely.
And I think it's important, you know, that the words, first of all, sound cool, but
Yeah,
you know, I've written stuff myself where I read it literally and I'm not quite sure what it means, but because maybe it came from somewhere subconscious rather than the conscious mind. And
yeah,
I think that's the stuff that can really you know, you read it or you hear it and it makes you feel something mysterious and something, you know, mystical rather than thinking about it. You're
yeah,
just like the music, you know.
yeah, and that's why well, one of the reasons that that both me and Fenris won't really comment much on the lyrics is that I think it's up to everyone to interpret the lyrics the way they want, because it can definitely be seen as many things, you know, and but you know, the choice of words that Fenris do is always very good, and yeah, so for all this, I mean, I've been writing some lyrics myself, as you probably know, on some albums here and there, but I can't really I have some I live a very different life than Fenris, so um, I don't have much time to you know, think about stuff like that. I'm not very good at it either, but if I have something that really uh, if I have something that really I want out, you know, and it's always, when I wrote lyrics, it's always very specific things, but I managed to, you know, to make a lyric out of it, that it will say that the truth is in there, you know, and but it's just, you know, layered with words that can, you know, lead to the conclusion, but it's
Right. Like kind of ambiguous and saying something profound or personal, but using metaphors so
yeah,
that it's
exactly,
not so
exactly.
specific and it's a little more
Yeah,
universal, like we said
yeah,
earlier.
that was definitely the case on the lyrics I wrote for Underground Resistance. So yeah, there's been some lyrics, but I really have to have something to write about before I can do it. So yeah,
Okay, so I don't want to take up too much more time. I have
no, it's okay.
one more sort of vague
I
or
like it. I like this. As I said earlier, I like this interview.
okay, good.
Yeah, I think it's nice talking to you, and yeah, I like your questions.
Awesome.
Yeah,
So this is sort of like a maybe on the more philosophical side of things, but you know, you're like 3+ decades into this, 20, 21 albums, depending on who you ask. And I feel like the new album might have, to me, might have like the highest concentration of really powerful riffs of like anything you guys have done. It's like the more I listen to it, the more I'm like, Jesus, like every riff is so good. And so I'm wondering, you know, most people playing in bands when they get 30, 35 years into it, they'll get jaded or maybe running out of ideas or running out of inspiration. So I'm wondering if you have any idea what it is that keeps you guys so inspired. Is it the maybe the fact that you don't play live or tour, so that's not draining your energy, that's not making you bitter, or is it the hiking, you know?
yeah. I think it's a combination of both those things, because the fact that we don't use energy on touring is a big part of it, big part of it, and also I think the general love for music that we both have makes us basically not running out of ideas, I guess. I mean, and for me as a guitarist, I of course enjoy playing the guitar, and so it's always a challenge. I think that's also a part of it, because you know, when we talked about not being a scholar on the guitar, you know, every time I start working on a new album, it's very kind of a it seems like a really steep curve, you know, and I'm confident I would get there, you know, but it's always a very it feels very challenging, and I think that's a good thing, because then I don't know, I win every time over those things, because as I said, I'm making the music a bit more my songwriting is more traditional, so it's a lot of work and a lot of thinking behind it,
Like the
and
arrange
also
the songwriting in like an arranging sense.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, because
Can be
arranging the song is really important, and I remember after recording Eternal Hails, I was really pleased with the way I arranged my songs, and I know the arrangement of songs is really important, and yeah, it's a part of the deal, you know, and also later on you get these other things you have to take in consideration. I when the album is recorded, and you know, it's 4 months to the album comes out, you always get the question that you're going to put out one song before the album is released, and what song should that be? and that's not easy when it comes to Darkthrone, because the songs are so different. So so we're trying to pick the song that most efficiently shows how the album is, you know. But it is not easy.
Yeah.
But we always kind of agree in the end anyway. But this time around it was a Black Dawn affiliation, because it had elements of, you know, many things.
Right. You want your first impression to represent the album as a whole.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yes.
that's tricky if you're writing a lot of different types of songs, you know.
It's very difficult, because imagine if the first let's say we pick the Heavy Hand instead of Black Dawn affiliation. What kind of expectation would people have to that album then?
Sardonic Wrath. It sounds like Sardonic Wrath.
Yeah.
I love that song. Those riffs, and that I actually have that riff on my phone as well, because it gives me that same
Yeah.
like
That's
it's more about attitude and like doing things nasty and wrong and fucked up sounding. I love it.
absolutely. And some of the riffs are just all the riffs are just linked together in a weird way.
Yeah.
So it's small changes here and there making big effects. So yeah.
Clever.
Yeah.
Not complicated, clever, you know.
Clever, yes.
So to close things out, man, I'm gonna get a little bit sentimental, because we all know that black metal is known for its sentimentality. You spoke about it a little bit earlier, how someone in Bogota, Colombia, will be experiencing your music and they're seeing all sorts of different things than
Yeah.
what you were seeing. And you know, I think there's something beautiful about the fact that, you know, you're two guys growing up in a rural area in Norway, right? Kind of small town
Yeah.
thing. And here I am years later, small town Oklahoma, you know, very
Yeah.
boring, surrounded by conservative Christians. And it's like, it's discouraged to be into anything weird or extreme, and heavy metal is definitely not cool. Uh,
Oh, I guess.
somehow the music and the riffs that you guys were making all the way across the planet
Yeah.
it over to me, man, during that time in my life, and it made it a lot more pleasant and a lot more bearable. So I thank you for that, man. I salute you for the riffs.
Well, I think that's a very nice thing to say, and thank you. And you know, I'm just happy the music reached you, and I think and yeah, even back in the day, you know, music floated everywhere, and even in the 80s, when we you know, did tape trading, and we you know, that time was like the internet of that time was, you know, sending demos and flyers around the world, and we got a lot of fan mails from everywhere, and it was like it was from the Soviet Union, and it was Panama and Timor, and you know, it's like and America, and so it was a bit we weren't expecting that, but it's a good feeling that the music is spreading out. I mean, that's what we basically want people to listen to our music. So I'm glad it found you well.
Thank you, man. That's the power
Yeah.
of the riff.
Yeah, that's the power of riff, exactly, and the riffs are everything, actually.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Ted, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to tell our viewers, our listeners?
I would just thank them for staying tuned. You know, and I'm happy to do this interview, and it was a pleasure. So I wish you the best of days, and hopefully next time around, like we can have a chat again.
Yes, sir. I'm here whenever you want to, man. I really
Yeah,
enjoyed it.
that's nice. Good to hear.
Thank you for your time, Ted.
Yeah, thank you the same, man.
Cheers, man.
Bye bye.